unfortunately, I will not be talking about McKinsey today. I'll actually be talking about the voluntary carbon market. And let's start with the completely obvious. The voluntary carbon market is quite complex. There is your ARR, your CORSIA, your RED+, your JNR, your ETS. There's enough acronyms to make a soup, and you'd be forgiven if you don't know your ICVCM from your BCMI. But first, let me actually explain what a carbon market is. So a carbon market, like any good economist will tell you, is the solution to a problem, which is driven through markets. It's a market-based instrument, and it tries to deliver decarbonisation through the most cost-efficient manner. And that means if you've got a company over here who has a very expensive cost of decarbonisation, and you've got another company over here who has a very low cost of decarbonisation, your company with a very high cost is maybe not going to do very much decarbonisation because it's very expensive, and your company with a low cost is probably going to do insufficient decarbonisation because they're not incentivized to do it. And so if you can match these two markets together, or match these two organizations together, create a market, then you can maximize that by doing a transfer of money through that process. And there's two different types. So the first one is compliance carbon markets. So that's where there's a regulated entity. That's things like the EU emissions trading system or the cap and trade system in California. And there's an authority, a government that sets the rules. It's very clear. That's an easy one. The voluntary carbon market, on the other hand, is a similar system, but without any regulator, without any authority, without any rule maker. It's the Wild West. And this is why it is such a complex situation. And without that regulator or authority, it's kind of like a ship without a captain. When there's smooth water, it flows along, the ship sails, not a problem. As soon as there is a storm or a problem, who makes the decision, who turns the ship? And so this is what we're facing here with the voluntary carbon market. So let's talk about what we've actually seen. So I think you probably will have all seen, heard, noticed that the voluntary carbon market, or VCM, has grown a lot in the last few years. So it's been around for quite some time, but we've really seen a lot of rapid growth. And now I can say VCM, and most people, even outside of the direct climate sphere, will know what that acronym means. But what we've actually seen in the last sort of 12, maybe 18 months is actually a lot of volatility, and particularly price volatility. So COP, you generally find this like big increase. Lots of organizations are buying credits before that. But then since then, we've seen a real drop in the market. What you can see here on the right-hand, your right-hand side, is prices kind of going down, and we're seeing a real slowdown in the market. So let's have a look at what is driving that. So two big areas are driving this sort of volatility and sort of change that we've seen recently. And the first one is really around quality. And that quality is coming out through, we've seen a lot of negative press, particularly this year. So we saw in January, there was quite a bit of information and press coming out on Kariba project, you may have heard of, and really questioning the impact of that project. And then we had some more research and media coming out, and these are coming out in big media outlets on RED+ projects in general, which is about reducing deforestation, and also cook stoves, which is about providing lower emission and also cleaner cooking environments in developing and emerging markets. So we saw a lot of this press that's really given rise to a lot of concerns around quality, and we've also seen quite a bit of press around greenwashing as well. And then the other sort of big trend that's sort of come out that's driving a lot of this volatility is around how to use carbon credits. So there has been quite a few policy sort of guidance changes that have restricted the use of carbon credits. Now, this makes a lot of sense because it's about the mitigation hierarchy. And what's important in the mitigation hierarchy is that first you decarbonize as much as you possibly can, and then offsets are supposed to be for the residual emissions. So that's why these organizations have kind of pushed for this, but it's actually just reducing the use of offsets in general. And we really need to move forwards with a lot of decarbonization with all the channels that we have available to us. And these kind of guidance ones, so you've got the SBTI, provides guidance for companies on how they transition to net zero, and it's restricted the use. You've also got organizations like GFANZ, which supports financial institutions in this, that have also done the same thing. So we've got these two problems these two sort of drivers of volatility and reduction in demand coming from the quality concern and also from the use of the restricted use of carbon credits. And then that is impacting on the value chain. And so like most markets, the value chain and the market is generally driven by the demand end of the spectrum, so buyers. And buyers are worried about quality because of all this press that's come out. They're really looking for transparency in the credits. Buyers themselves often don't know that much necessarily about the VCM. It's a very complex market. They have their own day jobs. They can't necessarily know all the details and ins and outs of the carbon market. And then a big one of what will they actually use the carbon credits for if you've got all these guidance organisations telling them that there is a restriction and they can't use it. So they've got these big concerns around the quality, around how they can use it, and if there's sort of enough transparency and information that they're not going to be hit by greenwashing claims. And then so the buyers are then, having their concerns and pushing that through to intermediaries. And the intermediaries are trying to meet what the buyers need, and the buyers have reduced demand. And then that's flowing through to the supply end of the spectrum and right through to the developers at the start of that value chain. And those developers generally have projects of sort of 10 to 30 years. They're having, and as many of you might also be in this sort of room, they need to have those longer term horizons. And so they not only need to know what a buyer needs now, they need to know what a buyer might need in 5 to 10 years. And buyers themselves are not even sure what they need now. And so you're having this kind of really flowing through from one to the other. And because this is an unregulated market, you can expect that this kind of volatility, this kind of rapid change is going to continue for at least a little while, out to 2030 when some of the first targets are coming out at national and business level, national government and business level. There is still going to be some volatility. So what does that mean for the actual players and actors in the carbon market, and potentially for a few of you in this room, is that resiliency is going to be critically important because of this turbulence, because of this change, you're going to see things going up and down. You're going to see a changing market evolve from something that's quite nascent into hopefully something that's quite sophisticated, large and impactful. And as part of this need for resiliency and as part of this transition, it also creates huge amount of opportunities. So obviously huge amount of opportunities to get funding for your decarbonisation, which is why a lot of developers and suppliers have come into that market, but also a huge opportunity to take advantage of those changes that are happening and those market changes that are being driven largely from the demand side. So this is where it's critically important that not only you have resiliency, but also you understand where the market is going to head. You understand what buyers might want in the future, and you have a better sense of what the sort of black swan or change might be that comes into the market that you can try and take advantage of and or pivot your company to make sure that it's delivering that. And the sort of critical need to understand this is going to require connection into the market, knowledge of and understanding of what's happening, and that's going to enable companies of the future and to be able to take advantage of that next wave that comes through in the voluntary carbon market. Thank you very much.